of Uzak Rota.
Which Michael?
The one in Istanbul, on December, the last one.
Michael, there are two Michaels.
I think both of us were there.
Sorry, Bidrum Michael. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I mentioned but the other Michael was there as well, so that's why I'm asking. Okay.
No, it was you. Correct. The Polish Michael was also there.
Yeah, well, I live in Poland, but I'm Dutch, yeah, but it's fine. To make it
more I guess we are online.
Cool.
We can start. I just want to make the introduction to our participants, on the viewers. I don't know how we call it, on the audience, we can say also on YouTube. What we are going to talk about today is like the digital transformation in the travel and hospitality. I think these days with Corona, like many companies, not only travel and the hospitality field, but many other fields, companies are somehow they felt themselves like they have to adjust to this digital transformation, because like many of the potential customers, clients are at home. And also at the same time, we are going to talk about the customer experiences, because like we do all travel, we do all make travels, and we start our journey like when we want to search or find something about the destinations that we would like to travel. So the moment that we all start looking on internet, on online platforms, this somehow means our journey has already started. And from this moment on, from the other side of the travelers, like the companies as well, like the brands also, they somehow have to monitor the customer experiences, because we do hang out on their platform. This can be mobile app, this can be a website. So the customer experience is also very important and extremely helpful for the inspection of the aspect. I would like to introduce you our participants. We have Michael from Bidrum. We have Vinay, and we at the same time. I'm sorry, I forget to switch my my phone to silent as well. But we had Michael from Salesforce, and also Vinay. If I pronounce it wrongly, accept my apologizes. Am I correct from Vinay?
No, that's almost right. It's Vinay, but that's fine.
Vinay, okay. Vinay from Trip Factory. I want to welcome you all. First of all, thank you very much for your time, and I believe we will have a useful and a bit cheerful conversation, almost an hour. Welcome everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cool. So I can start. I would like to start from Bidrum Michael. So we have two Michaels. I am going to pronounce as Salesforce Michael or Bidrum Michael, if you don't mind.
Call me Michael P.
So Michael from Bidrum. Hello again. I would like to ask you like the digital transformation, how it will revolutionize from the travel industry.
Mm-hmm. What you can see now is a lot of things are changing, right? I speak to a lot of colleague industries of what is happening now when things are changing back or moving back, and how those people travel. I think also the way of people, how they're searching and behaving will change. But what we can see actually is this disruption, what we talked before, and also what I did in Istanbul last year. You see, in this industry, you saw before that subscription models, which were new in travel, was new. When everybody goes in subscriptions, like especially those periods when they're sitting at home, Netflix, Spotify, etc., they can see also like a business model that we have, which is subscription based for travelers, could make sense, and not only for for travelers and saving money, but also for the economic impact of a company. And when you see now the impact of focusing on transaction-based companies like other OTAs, they're in big trouble. We have recurring income, we have members. So also you can see next to verticals which are sacrificing more, you can also see business models I think has a huge impact as well in the sustainability of the company. And you can see companies which are more traditional struggling now. They have to move to online. But if somebody is already for years online, it's difficult to compete with them because they have an advantage already. So I think the one who are behind in online, they will sacrifice now the most.
Yes, I totally agree. So what I get from your talk, like subscription model is somehow important, huh?
Well, I read that some airlines are also considering now to think about how can they have recurring income, especially now when actually there's zero income. So you can think about loyalty programs and those kind of things. Okay, for a fixed amount, you have more benefits, or you're saving on your luggage or check-in luggage, etc. So you see that other companies in travel also checking how can we change our business model to be more safe in situations like this.
Correct. Michael, would you like to contribute some opinions of you about this the travel industry and how it can be revolutionized?
I think there's another observation that I'd like to add. Right, so in my in my world, I work with a lot of businesses. Right, so I think that's and so one thing that I see very clearly is that companies that have basically built a digital core, right, are the ones that are doing really well now. Right, so if you start pushing into that space now, you have a lot of catch up to do. And so, adding to that, subscription idea is that companies, as basically, especially now, as we come out, come out of COVID, some of the companies, some businesses need to really refocus, right, their efforts. Travel is going to change, at least in the short term. And so it really requires businesses to focus on a different customer segment, on different types of travel. Take, for example, right? So, for example, one of the things we saw happening in China is that so local travel picked up, right? And so companies that are able to acquire those kinds of customers, right, those kinds of travelers, those kinds of buyers are the ones who are doing really well. But in order for you to do that, you need to be already quite compact. Right, and you need to have the right technologies in place to be able to capture that market. Right, so I think that's for me is the main takeaway. Really, have technology in place to really help you, pivot into new places and market much more quickly and simpler.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I have an observation like these classic agencies, or we can say traditional agencies, now somehow in order to survive, they are trying to be on online platforms, as Michael said. Like what I want to say, Veena, is like what is the challenges, like how these travel agencies should be, or what is the best way for them to be evolved? Because Trip Factory is already an online. It's only an online travel agent, online platform. Like how these process will take.
So I think we have to understand. It's almost like you and I have to buy a smartphone to make a call, and we know that we cannot make our own smartphone. I think so. When you think of a travel agency, and if we take 2-3 steps back, what is it which is when we say the word OTA is rather than saying online travel agent, I would say that travel agent has gone online, right? If I like to say it like that. So basically, when a travel agent goes online, what happens is his customers see 3 things happening, right? They see transparency, they see convenience, they can access it anytime they like. They're not worried about this guy is honest, not honest. They can see the same for everyone, so transparency. The third thing is the delight, empowerment, that I can do it myself and I can do it now, right? So we have to understand, and then again, the OTAs also have a call center. That means there is a service element which may or may not be required by the traveler. The travel agent leads this whole thing with service, right? So finding a fare is a service, making the whole thing is a service. So I think one of the key things we have to realize that the travel agent is as good as an online travel agent already, just that consumers don't have a digital access to him, right? So think of it that his shop has two doors, needs to have two doors. One is a digital door where customers can come in, and one is a physical door. So the online travel agencies have both the doors, right? So,
correct.
so the simplest way to see is like, at Trip Factory, like for example, we created, and I'm not trying to sell, it's just what we saw as a need, is that today if you go to a traditional agent, right, in the tourism space, right, if you look at the airline space, they created a body called IATA, they created a body called BSP, and they trained every travel agent in a way that he can issue a ticket from anywhere to anywhere. Right, so even if I asked you to go and issue a ticket from an Indian airport that you don't know, you look up that airport by the name, and you'll be able to issue A to B. But a travel agent who's selling leisure, suppose I ask him to go and sell Turkey, or if I go and ask him to sell Paris, he's not able to do that because you need knowledge. So I think so. The second important thing in digitization is not only that you get an online platform, like we offer travel agents a complete infrastructure where they can come in and they can operate their leisure business, and they can get a website, they can do this. So I think the key thing is selection, right? So understanding that, right? So they need a platform like we all need a smartphone. So being smart about what you acquire, and the best thing is to not engage digital agencies and buy software. Best is to associate with a platform which is available locally, because they know what the customer needs from a digital standpoint, and then this guy knows how to service it. So I think that's the way a travel agent can go online, and that's how he can acquire more clients. It's a simple.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to comment actually on Vinay. I think he made a good point, Alain. He started with the part of the OTA market and transparency. I think that's really important now to be unique. And I think the current OTA market, and as many know, we're fighting for a more transparent market. And I think that's actually really, really interesting to talk about, because if you're looking at the current market, there's this transparency is not there. If you see, especially the large OTA, what is happening now, the issues, the refund policies, etc. Yeah, you can see they're missing transparency. I think that's more important. If you go digital, or you just focusing, you're going to become an OTA, and we don't want to call ourselves an OTA, but more a community, an OTC. But you have to be unique, I think, what you said, but then transparent. But also in this case, when you go online and you're not online before, make sure you focus on a unique group of travelers, and don't go for the mass like many others doing. So focus on niche or be unique, because if you want to be the same like the rest, you're not going to compete against the big ones.
Absolutely.
And I can mention before, and I can mention many times, is the transparency, I think, going to be so important the coming period now, when things are unclear for many travelers, like about refunds, etc. So I think if you want to be unique in this world, you have to make clear that your policies and everything you're doing and offering to your travelers is fair.
Okay, Michael, again, what I get, like the keyword is transparency, as you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will get my notes during our talk, and at the end I will see what are the keywords that we have, so we can share with our audience and see. So Salesforce, Michael, I'm sure, I mean, we all know that Salesforce has a very huge a brand, and I believe that brings also, you have a huge data regarding from your the data that you have from your consumers, from your customers. The question is, no, I'm not going to ask you to share this data. This is just a kidding. What effects to the consumer when it comes to their traveling behaviors? Like what we can estimate, what we can rely on their behaviors.
Interesting question. There's a couple comments. Actually, I would like to make a comment to the previous statement. There's
yes, please. By the way, just a second, I want to mention this. Anything like what I might have asked to other speaker, if you want to include something, contribute something, please feel free to continue. And
That's all right. Thank you. I just thought about that because it sort of fits your current question and it fits the last question. Salesforce did a lot of research around trust, and so transparency is one of the key things that came up with trust. And so especially when it comes to data, when it comes to basically operating and practices, right? So transparency right, is one of the key things that came up. That essentially led to building trust, and I think building trust is really one of the key things. Especially at this stage in the travel industry, is really how do I trust the business? Basically spending my money to plan something. I need to be able to actually trust and rely on that business that I will really be able to consume that that service at some point in time. But going back to your data question, that's an interesting one. So I think first of all, right, so Salesforce is all about data, and our technologies are, we invest a lot of research into that space, but we don't actually own any of the data. So we're not like, we're not like the Facebooks of this world. Basically, our customers buy tools to collect data and use that data, but we don't have any access to it, right? So it's always owned by the customer, right? So even if I would be, even if I'd want to share it, I couldn't, right? But so that's one thing. The second thing is when I look at travel, right, and when I look at successful businesses, there's a couple of things they do really well. Some of them are, I think, sound rather mundane, right? But when you think about data, so I think about data in sort of a couple layers. So one of them is all about bringing data together so you can service better, right? So that every touch point, right, you have with that customer feels right, is right. When you think about, imagine you walk into a hotel, right, to a reception, you walk up to the reception, you'd like those people to know you. If you left a note somewhere saying, hey, can you please, give me a room high up, right? You'd like that to be respected. It's simple things. But then really businesses that I see doing really well is basically businesses that have a handle on their data, right? Meaning they really have an understanding of their data and their customer as a consequence, right? Basically, what that means is their customer as a person, right? As they buy in consumer service, for example, I'm a hotel customer, or guest, or from a selling perspective, right? So it's I see quite a big gap between businesses, that are doing somewhat well and businesses that are doing really well, right? Businesses that are doing really well have a very good understanding of their traveler's intent, to really have a good understanding of why people are traveling, right? For example, again, I could be traveling to Istanbul, right? But if you can figure out why I'm traveling to Istanbul, right, then you have a really good understanding of me, right? Maybe I like the Bosporus, right? Maybe I'm into historic things. Maybe I like to, maybe I visit family, right? But so once you know that, right, you can be much more relevant to me, right? And that really is one of the key sort of, this is one of the key differentiators that I see, right, across the industry I'm working in. And so this is where we spend most of our energy, really, technology-wise and also consulting-wise, is to say, now, how can we help businesses really, get a handle on that, right? So that their advertising, their marketing, their servicing, right? They're selling on the buyer side, so on the B2B side towards agencies and corporates, so that basically all of that is more relevant, right? So sorry, it was a bit of a long and winded answer, but I hope that was helpful.
What I agree with the part is especially by personalization. I think it's super important. What you mentioned is if you're searching for something, and if you want to go to what you said, if you want to go to Istanbul, you want, and even searching for a specific hotel, you want something what is fitting with your wishes. So I think this is also important. What you see now in trends, that the personalization part is super important. So the good thing is we have user profiles, so we're really learning every day what is the behavior of the guest. But I think it's going to be more and more important. So I don't know if we're going to talk about it later, but AI, machine learning, learning your guest, and predictions. I think it's super important to give the right advice, especially now. The people go to a place which is actually matching with their wishes or the expectations, and also their personal life.
It's an interesting one. I listened to a podcast from Oxford University over the weekend, and so they spoke about how advertising and marketing really changes, and how it's much more important today than to really put more focus on content, right? So going back to your point, Mike, it's really all about this. It's really important to actually start telling stories. Right, it's really important to actually engage that person, in a more useful manner. Right, it's not just about selling a hotel room. It's about really, building a bridge to that person. It's about helping them understand.
Education, in my opinion. Yeah.
Sorry.
It is more education, I think, which changes into selling. You can see it moving.
And so all of that, right, is enabled by basically and driven by data and personalization. And the better you understand that, right, the better you become in doing that. And so that also changes how businesses work. I think for you, Michael B, and Vinay, I think for you, this is more of a natural space, I would almost imagine. Right, for some of the traditional businesses, changing that, way of working, basically moving from sort of classical push marketing to true customer engagement, right? So basically those businesses, right, they form a hypothesis and say, I think this group of people is really going to like this, right? And then they start communicating with that group of people, but they also measure the impact. And so as they work, right, they will improve how they do things, and it will become better and better. Right? So I think for you guys, that's more of a natural thing. For some of the traditional businesses, that's really hard. Right? So it's a very multifaceted conversation. It's ways of working, it's data, it's personalization, it's new stuff like AI and forecasting. It's really interesting.
But I fully agree. And you see the communication of different companies now during the crisis, when some of them we try to engage still with their customers and client and educate them and then stay in contact and inform them. When other ones sending really corporate, cold kind of messaging, and they don't know how to act on this. So you can see a big difference in communication between our corporates or traditional companies or startups, and you can see a big difference there as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I think
would you like to include something regarding this customer's behavior?
I just like to add, the way to look at data is, it is the unspoken language on the internet, right? So it's like it is almost like it is saying, it's like you're playing dumb charades, like you're making some actions by doing this. So I think so the data is an unspoken pieces of language, and you're trying to gather people's emotions by trying to bring pieces of data together to try to understand what are they interested in. Like, like Michael said, that it's not about buying a room, it's about that story which led me to buy that room, right? So I think so the like, for example, right, it's almost like saying, what color shirt do you want to buy, while there are so many shirts out there in the store. So similarly, like, there are so many 4-star hotels, so many 5-star hotels, like, why would I want to buy one, right? So I think so based on the filters they're choosing, the sequence of filters, based on what they're searching, how many year old are they traveling with an infant, are they traveling with a toddler, are they traveling with adult kids? Are they traveling with senior people? What is the size of the room? Which way is the view? Does the hotel have a ramp? Does the car go till the hotel? Are there steps? Is it an old hotel? Is there elevators? Are there enough rooms on the ground floor? Everything is on the first floor. Do they have a porter? There could be so many things, right? Based on what are the pieces of data which will make my story perfect to pitch to a particular traveler type. So knowing yourself first, because you are who you are. It's like we make friends, so we kind of look for data. I like this kind of person, and I don't like this kind of a person because I don't fit into his story. So everyone has a silent story, right? Every business also has a story if they want to listen to themselves, right? And in their story, there are certain kind of people who tune into it. So I think so. Trying to find those people by publishing and talking about stories is what probably Mike was talking about from the Oxford Press, and and the and the other part is really about how do you gather this data? Where do you gather this data? So when you're designing the digital ecosystem, it's almost like saying, you know, it's like the classic thing to say, when you go to a kitchen, you end up picking the first plates, not the last ones. So how you stack up stuff also affects the choices people make. So the whole point is like how we are designing this page. What is the first choices you want people to make? If it doesn't matter to them, then he's not your guy, right? If it matters to him and he's going through this gate, then this is this type of guy. Suppose there are 5 types of people you want to serve a meal, right? So you want to know what kind of taste buds people need to have, and you want them upfront. So I think so data allows you to, I think so first you need to know yourself, then you need to know what data will apply to you as a business, and then you need to become sensitive about that unspoken emotions and gathering it and then trying to piece them together, for which companies like Salesforce will give you tools. And if you come to a platform like us, we would do it. Or you go to Bitroom, I think so, Bitroom, they would do it, or any other digitally savvy platform would do it.
We are also on live. I mean, not we are also on live. We are on live on YouTube, and we are also gathering some questions. There is one question that took my interest, and I would like to share it with you to see what we have as an outcome. It is Eklimia Bilgin. He or she, I cannot see the avatar picture, asking, do you think our persona is going to change after the COVID-19? Because what we are talking about here is one of the things is learn your customer. We need to learn our customer. We need to understand their behavior, how their behavior affects when it comes to booking. But now the whole world is facing with Corona, and this Corona has affected to everyone. And even we go outside on the streets or going to supermarkets, going outside on walks, we have some behaviors that we have never experienced before. Like we go to a supermarket, someone would have coughed or sneezed 2-3 months ago, we would be totally fine. But today, even if that person is our friend, our family member, relatives, when someone sneezes or coughs next to us, we immediately become a bit irritated. So we have from this period on, we will have different behaviors on us that we will be also facing for the first time. How we, as the travel industry, how we are going to write down or drill down all these behaviors, understand our customers regarding this behavior, and serve them. Like this is going to be also a challenge for the travel industry, for the hospitality industry, I believe. Like this is just came from the comments as a question, which I like it. How are we going to estimate this, or how are we going to predict, as we said? Any ideas on this?
I can go for that first. So I think so. Let's break this question into 3 questions, right?
Okay.
The first question is behavior. My behavior, how it will change, like my psyche and how I react to situations. Second is what should the travel industry be doing, and how will this behavior plus travel industry work together?
Perfect.
So because 2 are in isolation and 1 is together, right? See, I do think wellness, consciousness about health will be a thing, but I think the mask is a device to prevent a lot of it, and sanitizers will become more prone. and it'll also become second nature to us. Like we drive, it's complex when we start. It's a behavior. But I think so the world will kind of get into a drive mode with COVID, right? So I think people will understand, yeah, he's sitting with a mask and, people are taking your temperature, and like you used to go through an access, you pretty much have a temperature access also added to you, right? So it's almost like you have two access points now. So I think health access would become one big thing. So whether health access comes in as, suppose you want to travel to another country, people used to have yellow fever, vaccine or this or that. So I think immunization will take as a front seat, which kind of will tell the other people, oh, this guy coming in, don't worry about it. So once they know there's nothing to worry, nothing changes much, and then the hygiene and this will change. So I think gating criteria will change a little bit. Second, I think so when it comes to travel people, like what should we be doing? It's almost like if I'm inviting you home, you should be confident you're going to somebody who has good hygiene, and I'm not going to get sick over eating their food, and I'm not going to be sitting in an unclean place. And that's what people expect from hospitality, right? If you take this whole thing as one word as hospitality, whether it's taking somebody on a tour or serving them on a plane or this, are we hospitable in a responsible way, right? I think so that will be the second piece. And the third piece will be, I think so, like you're going to supermarket and you have people around you, it'll be like this, right? There'll be people around you when you're traveling. So the same way that you behave in your city, you would behave elsewhere. So I think communication to people around, I think so the biggest gating criteria will be the health pass to me at some level. Over communicate the idea and explain how you're doing it so kind of people know. So I think a lot of literature will start carrying the word we are COVID safe, something like that, right? Or there will be tourism boards which will start issuing certificates to say, these businesses are good to do business. The third thing I think so, which will happen, the fourth thing which I think so will happen will be contact tracing. Like governments would want to know who's come in, and let's say, somebody's traveling from St. Petersburg to Turkey and there is a big outbreak of COVID in St. Petersburg. It should not happen, but I'm just saying, then people would want to know where are all those guys who came in from St. Petersburg and where are they staying and who have they come in contact with. So I think so traceability would be another thing which would get linked to this health pass. So this health pass will not only be a singular unit where people are, but once these things are there, it's like a visa. People will just travel, I think.
Well, I think the impact will be even completely different. And I think when the question was really about the personas and the way they are traveling, and beside the fact of clean and hygiene, I think the whole way of people traveling going to be different. I think they're going to be more into their self. You're just not going to be in places. You're avoiding a food market in Thailand with all respect. This, for example, the way when people first they saw this, they would love to go there. So no, I would prefer to go with my family in a bit more spacious place and not many people around me. And that's, you don't think about seeing yourself in a big resort full of people standing in the queue, people by people going on the buffet. All inclusive. Things gonna change a lot, and I think the way people behaving, the way they were traveling. I think first of all, I think the biggest trend will, of course, will be domestic. It's safety first, and then the first months, but maybe even longer. So safety first, and I think people, especially when say families, but also travel of companies, completely differently when people now get used to, for example, more online video conferencing. So also whole business travel will impact a lot, and I think the impact going to be much more than we all think. And I think I mentioned before personalization. I think the way people, what they're looking for, it's the mass tourism. I think it's going to change a lot what you're seeing in places. And the Airbnbs and stuff, they are, of course, they are adding now days in between for hygiene. Yeah, those things will change a lot. And I think the impact as well is you're looking at the way of people starting the journey of traveling. Flights going to be impact a lot because people sitting close. Then the second thing is, okay, the transportation. People take personal, they're probably avoiding buses, etc. They're more into small, like or an Uber or more smaller, or renting a car. I think renting car will be more popular as well. Then if you stay in your hotel or in your holiday house, you want to have it for sure. I think people travel less but better and more clean and make sure it's good. So especially the upscale hotels, I think they were doing better. But I think that the 3-star hotels are lower with not the best reviews. They were struggling even more. So there will be, and then the fourth thing as well, what's going to happen is the way of people spending their travel. I think looking, for example, a restaurant is one thing. Is like I think room service is going to be could become more popular, because in this case you have your safety in your room. Instead of sitting in an overcrowded restaurant where people all around you are eating. So those things could change. I'm curious how hotels are going to change the way of serving guests, but could be room service, it could be, for example, more personalized, for example, dinners. So I think it would change a lot. And I'm really curious how it will develop. And I think it also, when you see, I just had an hour ago a meeting with one of your previous speakers, Adi from Hotel Runner. You see over channel managers or, for example, technologies also connecting to where the traveler is coming from. And I'm really curious if there's going to be impact as well, that hotels or places going to have different rates or different policies for different customers from different places, because people want to avoid customers from specific places. Are they going to have higher prices or low prices if the visitors are coming from countries which are actually better with the COVID crisis? So I think the impact, and I think data, what you mentioned before, going to be super important. And I think I'm really curious how hotels will adopt this change, because I think the ones who are adopting quick will make sure they're facilitating hygiene, but also different ways of, for example, in the journey or in the restaurant, they will do well. And I think the ones that we talked about innovation, the ones who are late with innovation, again, they will struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, Salesforce, would you like to add something?
It's the ones. No, I very much agree. Actually, with both points, I think I just want to emphasize. I think that's what I'm seeing as well. Is there's an expectation. I think we see that to some degree happening. That there's a lot of local travel right at this time. People are not venturing very far away, so there's a lot of local travel. The second thing I wanted to emphasize is, I think the biggest thing we know is, there's this big question mark about how long is this going to last, right? And so when I look at businesses, really what I see is some of them actually try to use the time wisely, right, and really invest to become stronger, right, as they come out on the other side. And of course, because we don't know how long that phase is going to last, right, one of the things that sort of came out of China, if you look at data in China and if you look at Google data, one of the things you can see is that consumers expect travel to come back, right? So eventually there is going to be regional travel, eventually there is going to be long-haul travel, but no one knows how long this current phase is going to last. And so I think the second thing that's important is really businesses look after, cash preservation, after their cost base. And so really use the time to become more compact, right, as a business, so they can be operating more effectively using technology. But, sort of in behaviors, I totally agree, right? People are going to look after safety, right? Predictability in a certain way. People are going to look after trust, right? Brands need to really start to rebuild their trust, need to really connect consumers, so really sort of rebuild that, trust within their community, and then really start slowly get people out on the street again.
If you would come back to the digital transformation in the travel and hospitality industry, like when the subject comes to digital, we all know that we need many tools in order to serve, or in order to extract some data, in order to understand our clients. The question is like, how does this development of technology and business models would affect the travel brand's price and the selling products? Like how it will affect?
I think I mentioned the business model, what we have, like more subscriptions, could really make sense now when especially transaction companies, they're more struggling. So I think there will be a shift in business models. I think it's connected also to loyalty, but that's, I think, an even longer topic. So I think, but combining this, I think by having a subscription, you're creating loyalty. And I think that's the important part of having a membership. So you binding actually your customers, having a relationship. So I think that's super important. And I think by having innovation, combining innovation with loyalty, and of course, by adopting the trends which are there in travel, I think it's super important. I think now there's, again, I don't want to go too deep in airlines because they're really good in loyalty programs, but now in this case, people don't care less about loyalty, they care more about safety. So I'm really curious what happens in the industry, and I'm curious if the airline industry can adopt different kind of pricing. Because I spoke with one of the airlines a few days ago, and I was asked them, what are you going to do after the crisis? Are you going to increase your prices to cover a bit your losses, or are you going to lower your prices just to get as much customers as possible? Because that's also discussion. What's going to happen with the prices if there's less people on the plane? Are they going to be higher? Okay, it means if they're going to be higher, people staying much more domestically because the flights will be expensive. So there will be a lot of change. I'm really curious how this will adapt also with the pricing models. And I mentioned before the discussions which are going on now in the industry about business models. I mentioned the commission structure, which is there in most of the OTAs. If you see what is happening now in Europe, and we're fighting it for a few years already, but if you see now what is happening in Europe a lot, and especially in the Netherlands, is again, like, you're thinking about a partnership in this case, where you're just, for years, you're paying a commission and expecting something in return, and now they just leave you and say, okay, good luck by yourself. First, we're thinking about ourselves, and that's bad. So I'm really curious also, I mentioned loyalty. I think combining a few things with sustainable business models combined with loyalty and how you're dealing with your customers is going to be super important after Corona.
And I'd very much like that, Michael. And then the one thing I'd like to add is not also use technology, right? Technology helps you become more flexible, right? So think about bundling, think about destination, think about really building, travel ecosystems, right? Rather than basically just yourself, right? I think, Peter and both of you have basically done this, but it's really, technology helps you, move away from a more static way of bundling travel into, enables you to become much more flexible, if that's what you're looking for, and if that's what you can, if that's what you manage to do. But this is where I see the opportunity. And so I've been working on some really great projects in that space to say, how can we actually enable entire regions, right? To basically connect little businesses that are not, big enough on their own, right? To really, reach the market they'd like to reach, but by basically creating this fabric, right, you are able to do that. And that's only possible via technology.
That's a great point. I think the last thing what you mentioned is this partnership part. What you see now is happening, that people and companies want to help each other. I think by creating partnerships now, it's going to be more and more important as well. And you can see even the chain hotels who are joining recently with us, it's like this, okay, before it was difficult to get them on board, some of them, they said, please, can we join? And then this is also with different kind of partners in different spaces. That depends if it's ticketing or when it's like transportation. So I think partnerships, I think this is going to be really important as well in after Corona.
Partnership. Vinay?
I agree with both of you, Mike. I think like WhatsApp, Facebook, they were platforms which connected millions of people. And think of us as people who didn't have the money to, or the vision, or the technology, or the time to build a Facebook which can connect, which can create an ecosystem. So I do think that ecosystem platforms will emerge, which will help a lot of smaller businesses to do what they need to do, and to connect efficiently with partners that they need to connect, to actually stitch a customer experience, lower the operating cost, take away the things they don't do well from them, and give them the tools that they can use to do well, right? So I think we're doing one such thing, So this is our big bet on travel. Is we're doing a project called Nexus to democratize the access to technology, marketing, and distribution, because we believe travel is a very large category. I don't know, and I'm sure you guys know, 1 in 3 searches on Google is travel. That means Google, 33% of the searches are travel, 33% are local, and 33% are elsewhere, right? I think travel industry is almost like a big game and it needs its own playgrounds. It needs a narrower web where travel search is more semantic, it is more well understood, and it's a combination of search and what Amazon did, where in this case, I think so you assume that the Amazon is not selling itself, but it is enabling with a Prime kind of a thing. So think of it that, suppose I'll give you a classic example. What you should be able to do is, like, an airline can plug into the GDS and 500,000 agents around the world can immediately issue a ticket on that. You can take a hopping flight, you can take any flight from any airport. So there are protocols on how people should fly. So I think so these platforms will establish protocols. So like what we do right now, and in fact we launched it recently, is, let's say if you were a DMC, you can just plug into our system and everybody around the world can start selling you. And the reservations show up in your system as if they were showing up in an airline system. And then they further get distributed to the guide, to the transporter, like Uber apps. So when a traveler is traveling, he doesn't need to really worry, where is my car, where is my guide, where is my this, where is my that. So I think so platforms have to solve for that. And Mike, I think so we should connect offline on that piece that you mentioned. But that's what we believe is going to happen, is a ecosystem which solves things which travel agents are not good at, travel suppliers are not good at, which will bridge that gap, right? Whether it is marketing tools, whether, like, we are doing our own version of MailChimp and Constant Contact to say, hey, we need to bring down the travel marketing cost to 1/3. And we need to bring the ease 3x. So at least to make the business 10x better. And in that, we will prompt them, please send Mike Bidroom, this hotel kind of a thing, mailer, and you send him this kind of a stuff. And based on how they react, they should be able to get insight into their customer data. So we believe that digital transformation for the travel industry is no longer going to be about creating websites. It is not going to be about. It is going to be about a central platform which will enable subscription-based models will come. I completely agree with you, Mike, there, where I think so subscription is the next wave of travel, where lots of small businesses will have global access, world-class technology, which they are subscribing to. Like you and I don't buy a Verizon phone or in India an Airtel tower. We just buy a subscription to say, hey, I want to talk for this much time. I want to use this much data. I don't need to bring that thing. So I think some heavy plumbing will be done. And that's what we're doing ourselves. And we're setting up chapters in about 200 countries right now to basically connect the communities and the ecosystem so that the communities and the ecosystem evolves to constantly keep building and serving the needs. I think so that's the future.
Oh, this was actually, we had a discussion in the panel session on the Uzakroda in Istanbul. It was actually, this topic was about the API economy, right? So it's just connecting APIs, connecting companies, and that's going to be the one who's good in connecting with other APIs is the one who just innovating, is the one who could win this battle in travel. So I think this whole API economy is going to be next to the membership economy, when I talk about often, it's going to be really, really interesting as well.
Yeah, I think, life has got to be as simple as, like if I need to send you a message, I need to get onto a platform, put your number in, and I can get on to you. So if I need to do business with somebody in London, the platform is, and the community is already telling me how trustworthy they are. The customer reviews are on top of it. And then I just do business. And when I do business, I know how to do business because we do business in one way. Right now, because there are gazillion travel businesses, each one has his own way of doing business, and people in the travel business are spending more time in not doing the business, but in servicing the business. So operations is eating out 70-80% of their energies, and 20-30% they're trying to struggle, and they're very not so good with technology tools and marketing because they're not supposed to be. It's like asking a chef to be trying to build an online website. It's like, do you want him to cook or you want him to become an online website? So just to say that, travel agencies should establish digital presence, I think so it's criminal. Because travel agencies should just keep serving better, and they should plug into an ecosystem which knows how to do that for them, for which they pay a small subscription, and now they take off, right? Which brings down their cost, which increases their efficiency. I think so that's the future. So I kind of agree with both of you that it's a combination of that.
Well, I think of Michael's company, Salesforce, I think they're strong because of this. It's like they're good in connecting, having an API and connect to as much other platforms as possible. And in this case, the connecting the dots, I think, is super important. And that's the same going to happen in travel more and more and more.
I think connecting is one part, Mike.
By the way.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. So I think connecting is one part. I think the AI will be another part. Subscription will be another part. And these communities will be another part. Because what you need to do is to create an ecosystem. I think so, Mike, that was the key word. The subscription is the key word, where people don't burn their house to get those services. So I think, and consumers like to subscribe. We all subscribe. We subscribe to electricity. We subscribe to freaking everything. Why do you have to buy a website? You have to hire some techies, hire a digital marketing company, because you'll never be able to maintain. Because in 3 months, if you don't get results, you say it's costing me $7,000 a year. Boom, next year I'm not spending money. Waste.
Interesting.
Nice.
Good thoughts, yeah. Good thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we talk about digital transformation, so let me create a scenario. We all do want to keep our business going. We talk about many things. We do brainstorming. We talk about, as we said, like loyalty programs, subscription models and stuff. So all these things shows that we want to continue the business. So when the business goes on, there are also, this means there will be also customers and customers' requests. Some of us, some companies can do this, some couldn't do it. They switched to home office working. Employees are working from home, giving support to customers from home. I also come along with many websites lately that they started their chatbot. So the question is like, do you think this digital transformation and also with distance, doing business a bit distance than we used to do before, how we will support our customers?
But
there will be a huge workload, because when people are also at home on their screens, on their devices, mobiles, computers, they do want to interact more with brands. But how are we going to cover up this volume? Like chatbots, would it be a good solution? Or if you want to give an example from your own companies that you are working, like would you ever think of implementing and going with a hardcore of support with chatbots?
Well, that's actually the first thing we did. We said, okay, we don't want to be another Booking.com and having huge customer support. So we already have a machine learning chatbot on our website. And we had it already more than a year, 1.5 years ago. So this is the first thing we did. Okay, we just want to make it self-learning chatbot, machine learning. And yes, we still, if it's needed, we have people who can really get it into person. But 95% of the questions can be answered because the bot is constantly learning. So I think it's really important. And when we decided 6 weeks ago to say, okay, I made a decision already before it was even announced in the country here. So okay, let's move all of us to home office. 1 day later, everybody was fully operational from home. So I think as a company, if you prepared for those kind of things and have the right innovation in the house, I think it's super important. And then you can adopt in crises like this. The whole team is still there. We didn't fire any people because of Corona, because everybody's fully working. And yes, we have less reservations. This is normal. But yes, I mentioned before, we have a more sustainable business model. But also we're looking at the future, how we can become different. So and one thing I mentioned before, when you have a huge customer support where it's only questions about trouble and not about new bookings, then it costs a lot of money, your customer support. And that's why we already had before, we have a self-learning bot. And it makes really sense to invest in those kind of technologies, in my opinion.
Interesting. I'd like to. So I'll divide that into two things. So I think, one aspect of it is a chatbot that you just mentioned, right, Mehmet? Initially, you said, okay, huge volumes of support, and actually, I'm quite fascinated with what you just said, Michael. It's one thing is one side is aspect, right? It's one aspect is support and services, right? It's really about how do we serve all the simple things, without needing much human interaction. I think that's one thing. The second thing in that context almost is, I think for me, is also a chatbot. If I think about it very flexibly, I'd say, well, there's maybe a chatbot, maybe it's on the web, maybe it could be WhatsApp on the other side, right? You could always have a robot on the other side of WhatsApp chat. But the interesting thing for me is it also adds simplicity, right, for the person, right? If I have a WhatsApp chat, let's say, with Bitroom, I'm able to, it's just one channel, right? It's really convenient. Whatever I have in terms of communication, right, with Bitroom is going to be in that one WhatsApp chat, right? It could be anything. It could be a booking confirmation. It could be my interactions with a chatbot. It could be my interactions with a real person, right? At some point in time, everything aggregated. And I think that, so that for me is the other angle of that, right? It's so yes, there's chatbots in terms of efficiencies and in terms of contact center and offloading and becoming cheaper to operate. But then for me, the other aspect is actually it's a huge opportunity at the same time. I just wanted to add that to it.
No, I agree with both Mike points that it's a very smart move to do an AI chatbot and taking load. It allows your customers to be serviced. Your service history is also part of it. And I think so. Chatbots are digital cousins of IVR systems, right? We were all used to press one for this, and if you want to do this, then it'll look up your balance and it'll tell you how much was your balance. It'll tell you when is your payment due. It'll tell you something about those plans. So I think so. Telephony had sort of brought these voice bots, we want to call them, if they were not chat bots, because they were saying things in voice, right? To us about 2 decades back, right? I remember when I was in New York, and you would get on to AT&T and they would tell you so much about your plans. They would tell you about your balance. You would call your bank and they would tell you press 2 for balance, press 3 for ordering your checkbook, press 4 for talking to, or press 0 to speak to somebody. So I think press 0 to speak to somebody is when a chatbot can't handle, right? So it's the same thing. But I think chatbots are as useful as we've been always finding, and they're becoming more intelligent. They're able to answer a lot more queries as computers are able to parse what human beings are saying, and computers like Bitroom, Mike said that they can be learning, they are machine learning like human beings do. So I think they are a necessity to operate in a lower cost environment, high convenience environment, and also I think it's a good thing to have on your website, because it's better to have somebody to talk to if you can't pick up the phone, right? And that chatbot is your, go-to guy at that point.
Okay, chatbot, which comes with also AI learning and like machine learning. Michael, Salesforce, maybe you might have a bit more experience, because Salesforce is very relying and cooperating on this subject. Like, how can artificial intelligence and machine learning like take this business future to the further steps?
There's a couple. I think there's 3 really points I wanted to make. Right? So when we speak about AI, what's really important for me is that we distinguish. Right? It's like it's a bit of a bowl that we mix put different things into. But in my mind, there's one aspect is forecasting. Right? It's basically predictive analytics. Right? So think about being able to predict buying behaviors, think about recommendations, right? Sort of that aspect where you make a recommendation or make a forecast based on something that happened in the past. And then we've got machine learning, which is basically the other category of problem solving. It's things like natural language processing, it's things like image processing, it's things like video processing. And so we need to, so when you think about AI, right, as a way to or as a technology to help you, right? I think then you need to think in those 2 different categories. That's one thing. The second thing is when you look at Salesforce, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is because it's actually done quite nicely, right? So you've got, again, 3 layers of technology. So what we do is we put predictive analytic type technology and self-learning type technology into our technology, right? So that when people work with it, it will learn with it and it becomes smarter, right? To say, based on, right, it would, for example, you're calling a contact center, right? And you would say, well, based on people like that, right, the agent should make this and this and this recommendation to that person, right? And it's entirely non-deterministic, which means it's entirely learned, right? So whatever the outcome of this recommendation is, it's something that the platform learned. So that's one thing. The second area where we spend a lot of energy is basically making those tools simpler to use. So you will have a set of technologies in the Salesforce technology portfolio that will simplify those kinds of activities, right? So for example, data science type activities, so discovering patterns in data, right? Building forecasting models, and then of course, and on top of that, right, you've got the classic set of technologies, where you actually build something yourself, right? So I think there's, it's almost like it's like a matrix, right? So you've got forecasting, you've got machine learning, but then you've got, sort of, I think over time we're going to see those things becoming more and more powerful and more embedded. And to go back to your question, really, so what this tells us, I think we're quite strong, right? So we as a market. I think there are loads of applications, right? Think about recommendations, think about forecasting and volumes, and think about patterns and buying behaviors, but then also think about things like, yes, maybe there's machine learning in with regards to chatbots, but then when you think about how important image search is really becoming, or slowly, right? You see how important image search becomes in terms of inspiration. You processing large volumes of data and information, images and videos, tagging them, right? So all of that, right? It's really, even if I think, how do I go to market? How do I understand what people are tweeting about? What are the photographs, this type of customer likes, right? What are the recommendations I'm, basically creating on top of that, right? So all of that can be addressed with the help of machine learning. And I think so. It's vast. It's literally vast. It's super interesting, and that's where part of our future lies.
Completely agree.
We all do agree. I do agree personally.
I agree. I think there's a big difference between AI and everything, but I think we're running out of time. But I think what Mike said is clearly true, and I think the measuring the behavior, but the images we just also, I can't tell too much, we just check how can image play a bigger role in selecting your destination, for example, or your ways. I think it's going to be more and more important, the way of people behaving. Then you have a different topic, which is voice, but I think if we go to this topic, it takes even longer. I think this is also important. So, but it is also self-learning. This is also AI. This is also etc. So interesting what's going to happen. I'm looking forward to other things which are coming still.
Yeah. Just I would like to give an example regarding this image selection. Like, I think these days we do all watch Netflix, right? I do come across like some same series with the same name series. I see many times with different banners, like different thumbnails. So Netflix is pushing me to watch, let's say, Narcos, not with a photo of not a character, but maybe an image, a picture from Colombia or Mexico or something like this. So this makes more sense when Michael says like image learning is important regarding on the image part. Like we are almost 1 hour talking. It's very lovely talking form. I enjoy very much and learn a lot. Like, and as I said from in the beginning, I do take my keywords. Like at the moment, I do have like five keywords that I do take them personally. Like I would say, when it comes to the subject, digital transformation in travel industry and hospitalization industry, like we did talk about transparency, which comes after with the trust. It's a combination together, but transparency and trust, learn your customer, personalization, which is again goes together, and the last one that Michael P was talking about, like predictive analytics, which is I heard it for the first time, and I will dig into it. It's a huge topic. Definitely, we can talk more and more. But from what we have talked in this 1 hour, these 5 keywords that I had, if I took it to my notes. Any additional things you would like to include? You would like to contribute? I will also check the comments, like if you have some. But what do you think, guys?
No, I think so. This was great, and I think COVID is farming time, and it's not trading time. We have to all think like farmers and not traders. And whatever you shall sow, so you shall reap. So make sure you're showing peace, patience. Like Mike said earlier, conserve your cash, become stronger. So
I wish everybody in travel all the best in these hard times, of course. And I fully believe that the ones who are more innovative and are just more honest and transparent, and the ones who are communicating well, I think to the audience and to the customer, they're the ones who can come out stronger. So I think there will be some ones who lose a lot, but there will be also some of them who can come out stronger. So I'm curious what the future brings, and I mentioned before, we are ready for it.
And I think I'll take the opportunity really to thank you all. It was a very pleasant chat. I really liked it. Very interesting. I learned a lot myself. So thanks for having us, Mehmet.
Perfect. It was very nice to see you guys. This was a question should be asked on the first time, but I forget it. I'm sorry. I will ask you all the guys. I want to know one by one, but I will start from myself. At the moment, I am based in Athens. I do live in Athens, and I would this week from yesterday on, the lockdown lifted a bit, not totally, but a bit, and we are okay, going pretty well. What about you guys? Like, where are you based? I know Vinny is in London based at the moment.
No, I'm in Bangalore. In India.
Okay, sorry. And Michael?
Yeah, I'm in my garage in Poland.
In Poland?
Yeah.
Michael P?
I'm in London, so I'm based
London.
in London.
Okay. And I hope the situation, at least around your area, you personally, your families, relatives, friends, you are fine. I would like to thank you all for your time and for your definitely important opinions and knowledge that you shared with us. And hope very soon we will do these talks, not only distance, but also we can come together and talk in person. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for the participants.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.